Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you a simple question. Have you ever had a day when you honestly believed things would never get better? A day when disappointment seemed heavier than hope? A day when you looked at your circumstances and quietly wondered if all your effort had been for nothing? If you're honest, most of us have stood in that place at one time or another. It doesn't matter how successful you appear on the outside. Every person eventually encounters a season that tests not only their strength but also their willingness to continue. The interesting thing about life is that it doesn't ask for your permission before bringing challenges. It simply delivers them. One day you're full of confidence, making plans for the future, and the next day something unexpected changes everything. You lose an opportunity. Someone lets you down, a business fails, a relationship ends, your health takes a turn. Suddenly, the future you imagined begins to disappear before your eyes. And in moments like those, it's very easy to believe the storm you're living in is the whole story. But let me remind you of something incredibly important. Storms have one characteristic that we often forget while we're standing in the middle of them. They pass. Think about every difficult season you've already survived. At the time, it felt permanent. You couldn't imagine smiling again. You couldn't imagine recovering. Yet here you are. Somehow you made it through. You learned something. You became stronger than you realized. The very experiences that once threatened to break you eventually helped shape your character. That's one of life's greatest lessons. Pain is temporary, but the person you become because of it can last forever. Sometimes we become so focused on today's problems that we lose sight of tomorrow's possibilities. We assume that because life is difficult now, it will always remain difficult. But that's not how life works. Seasons change, economies change, opportunities change, people change. Most importantly, you can change. And once you begin to change, everything around you starts responding differently. Here's a mistake many people make. They confuse a chapter with the entire book. They experience one failure and decide they're failures. They experience one rejection and decide they're not worthy. They experience one setback and conclude they'll never succeed. That's giving one moment far more power than it deserves. Remember, your life is much bigger than your current circumstances. What you're experiencing today is simply one page. It isn't the ending unless you decide to stop writing. I've often believed that one of the greatest forms of courage isn't standing before thousands of people or accomplishing extraordinary things. Sometimes courage is simply waking up one more morning and deciding, I'm going to try again. That decision may not seem dramatic. Nobody applauds it. Nobody gives you a trophy. Yet those quiet decisions are often the ones that completely change a person's future. Success isn't reserved for people who never struggle. It's reserved for people who refuse to let struggle become their permanent address. Every remarkable achievement has a story behind it. Every person you admire has faced disappointment, criticism, uncertainty, and moments of deep frustration. The difference wasn't that they avoided difficult times. The difference was they refused to surrender during them. Life has an interesting way of rewarding persistence. Not immediately, not always when you expect it, but eventually the seed doesn't become a tree overnight. It spends a long time growing where nobody can see it. Your progress often works the same way. There will be seasons when it feels like nothing is happening. You're working, learning, improving, staying faithful to your goals, yet the results seem invisible. Don't mistake invisible progress for no progress. Roots grow before fruit appears. And here's something else worth remembering. Never make a permanent decision because of temporary emotions. Feelings come and go, discouragement comes and goes, fear comes and goes, even confidence comes and goes. But decisions have lasting consequences. Give yourself enough time for your emotions to settle before deciding what your future will look like. Every sunrise is proof that life believes in new beginnings. Every morning quietly whispers the same message. You have another chance, another opportunity to think differently, another opportunity to act differently, another opportunity to become the person you were capable of becoming all along. You only have one life. Don't allow one difficult season to convince you that your best days are behind you. Sometimes the darkest night appears just before the first light begins to rise. Hold on a little longer. Keep walking a little farther. Trust that this storm is preparing you for sunshine you cannot yet see. Because the moment you refuse to give up is the moment your comeback truly begins. Now, once you've made the decision not to give up, the next challenge is just as important. You have to stop measuring your life by today's circumstances. That's where so many people get trapped. They look around at where they are right now and quietly decide that's all they'll ever be. They allow today's reality to become tomorrow's expectation. But your current situation is not your final destination. It's simply where you happen to be standing today. Life has a way of convincing us that what we see is all there is. If the bank account is empty, we begin to think prosperity isn't meant for us. If opportunities seem scarce, we assume they'll never come. If people have disappointed us, we start believing everyone will do the same. Little by little, we begin building our future around temporary evidence. That's a dangerous habit because your future isn't determined by your present circumstances. It's determined by the decisions you make while living in those circumstances. Think about that for a moment. Two people can stand in exactly the same place and walk away with completely different futures. One sees obstacles everywhere and decides to quit. The other sees challenges as invitations to grow and keeps moving. The environment may be identical, but the mindset is completely different. And over time, that difference in thinking creates a difference in results. One of the greatest mistakes we make is confusing where we are with who we are. Those are not the same thing. You may be struggling financially, but that doesn't make you a failure. You may have experienced rejection, but that doesn't make you unworthy. You may have made mistakes, but mistakes are events. They are not identities. Never wear yesterday's decisions as tomorrow's label. Your identity should always be bigger than your circumstances. If you allow circumstances to define you, then every setback will steal a piece of your confidence. But if your identity is built on the person you're becoming, circumstances lose much of their power. They become temporary conditions instead of permanent conclusions. I want you to imagine someone climbing a mountain. Halfway up, they stop and look around. All they can see are rocks, steep paths, and exhaustion. If they judged the entire journey from that single location, they'd probably turn back. But if they kept climbing, the view would change. The higher they go, the more clearly they see. Life works exactly the same way. Don't judge the entire journey while you're halfway up the mountain. Here's something else I've learned. Success rarely arrives looking like success. It often arrives disguised as hard work, patience, discipline, and delayed rewards. That's why many people miss it. They're waiting for dramatic signs that life is changing, while ignoring the small improvements happening every single day. Maybe you're becoming more disciplined than you were last year. Maybe you're learning skills you didn't have before. Maybe you're handling disappointment with greater maturity. Those changes matter. In fact, they matter more than most people realize because lasting success is built from invisible victories long before visible results appear. You don't have to know exactly how everything will work out. You simply need enough faith to take the next step. Too many people refuse to move because they can't see the entire staircase. But life rarely reveals the whole path. It rewards those willing to walk before every answer is visible. Remember, your future isn't something you discover. It's something you create. Every choice you make today is quietly shaping the person you'll become tomorrow. Every book you read, every conversation you have, every habit you practice, every lesson you learn, they're all investments in a future version of yourself that doesn't exist yet. Don't underestimate the power of those small investments. Time has a remarkable way of multiplying consistent effort. And let me tell you something encouraging. The world often responds differently when you begin responding differently. As your attitude improves, your opportunities expand. As your confidence grows, people begin to trust you more. As your discipline strengthens, doors that once seemed locked begin to open. It's amazing how many external changes begin with an internal decision. So don't spend your days asking, why is my life like this? Ask instead, who do I need to become? That's the question that changes everything. Circumstances come and go, but character has a way of creating opportunities regardless of the environment. Build the person, and the results will eventually follow. There will always be reasons to feel discouraged if that's what you're looking for. But there will also always be reasons to stay hopeful if you choose to look in that direction. The choice is yours every single day. You can stare at today's limitations, or you can start building tomorrow's possibilities. Never let your present circumstances convince you that your future has already been decided. Your story is still being written, and every new day gives you another opportunity to write a better chapter, because the future belongs to those who refuse to let today define forever. Once you stop allowing today's circumstances to define tomorrow, something remarkable begins to happen. You realize that your future isn't changed by one giant breakthrough. It's changed by the small decisions you make every single day. That's where real transformation lives, not in dramatic moments that happen once in a lifetime, but in ordinary choices repeated consistently over time. People often ask, what's the secret to success? They expect some complicated strategy or some hidden opportunity that only a fortunate few ever discover. But more often than not, success is surprisingly simple. It's choosing to do what needs to be done long after the excitement has disappeared. It's getting up when you'd rather stay in bed. It's reading another chapter when everyone else is scrolling through distractions. It's making one more phone call, practicing one more hour, saving one more dollar, learning one more lesson. Those little decisions don't seem important in the moment, but they quietly shape the direction of your life. Here's something worth remembering. Every action is casting a vote for the person you're becoming. Every time you choose discipline over comfort, you're strengthening your character. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you're building self-respect. Every time you refuse to quit, you're teaching your mind that persistence is part of your identity. Most people underestimate the power of consistency because they overestimate the power of intensity. They believe they have to change everything overnight. They make enormous promises to themselves. Starting tomorrow, everything will be different. They try to transform their entire lives in a weekend. But after a few difficult days, the motivation fades, the routine disappears, and they're right back where they started. Real change doesn't demand perfection. It demands persistence. Imagine a tiny stream of water flowing over solid rock. One drop doesn't seem capable of making any difference, neither does 100. But let enough time pass, and that gentle stream carves valleys through mountains. Not because the water is stronger than the rock, but because it keeps showing up. Life rewards that kind of consistency. The smallest habits repeated faithfully become forces that can reshape your future. You don't become healthier because you exercised once. You don't become financially secure because you saved money for a week. You don't build strong relationships because you were kind on one occasion. Every worthwhile result in life comes from repeated actions that eventually become part of who you are. That's why your daily routine deserves your attention. Success isn't something you chase once in a while. It's something you practice every day. Your habits are quietly deciding your future, whether you realize it or not. If your habits are moving you toward your goals, time becomes your greatest ally. If your habits are moving you away from your goals, time becomes your greatest obstacle. Either way, time simply multiplies what you repeatedly do. There's another lesson hidden inside this idea. Don't wait until you feel motivated to take action. Motivation is wonderful when it appears, but it's an unreliable companion. Some mornings you'll wake up inspired, other mornings you won't. If your progress depends entirely on how you feel, you'll spend much of your life standing still. Discipline, on the other hand, doesn't ask how you feel. It simply reminds you of what you've decided. It keeps you moving when enthusiasm disappears. It carries you through days when the results aren't visible. And something interesting happens when you continue acting with discipline. Eventually, your feelings begin catching up with your actions. Confidence grows because you've proven to yourself that you can be trusted. Think about the confidence that comes from keeping your own word. That's one of the greatest forms of confidence you'll ever develop. Not because someone else praised you, but because you know you've become someone who follows through. Every promise you keep to yourself strengthens your belief that you can handle bigger challenges. That's how confidence is built. Not by waiting for success, but by practicing reliability one day at a time. Too many people spend years waiting for the perfect opportunity while ignoring the opportunities already sitting in front of them. The perfect time rarely arrives. The perfect conditions almost never exist. But today's choices are always available. You can learn today. You can improve today. You can forgive today. You can save today. You can work today. You can take one meaningful step forward before this day is over. Never underestimate one good day. A single productive day leads to another. One disciplined week becomes a disciplined month. One disciplined month becomes a different year, and before long, people call you successful without ever seeing the thousands of ordinary decisions that created that success. Remember, remarkable lives are rarely built through remarkable moments alone. They're built through ordinary moments handled with extraordinary consistency. Every small choice matters. Every disciplined action counts. Every day gives you another opportunity to become just a little stronger, a little wiser, and a little closer to the life you've imagined. Because greatness isn't created in a single leap. It is earned one faithful decision at a time. Once you've learned the value of small, consistent actions, you'll discover something even more important. Those actions are almost always controlled by something you cannot see. Before your hands ever move, your mind has already made a decision. Before you take a step forward or backward, there's a conversation happening within you. And whether you realize it or not, that conversation is shaping the direction of your entire life. Every one of us has an inner voice. It speaks when no one else is around. Sometimes it encourages us, reminding us that we're capable of more than we imagine. Other times it whispers doubt, telling us we're too late, too inexperienced, too ordinary, or too broken to succeed. The question isn't whether that voice exists. The question is, which voice are you choosing to believe? Many people spend years trying to change their circumstances without ever changing the thoughts that created those circumstances. They hope a better job will make them more confident. They believe more money will eliminate fear. They assume success will automatically bring peace of mind. But lasting change doesn't begin on the outside. It begins with the way you think about yourself, your future, and your ability to grow. If you plant seeds of doubt every day, you shouldn't be surprised when fear grows. If you constantly tell yourself, I can't do this, your mind begins looking for evidence to prove you right. If you repeat, nothing ever works out for me, you'll notice every disappointment while overlooking every opportunity. The mind is remarkably obedient. It follows instructions you give it, whether those instructions help you or hold you back. That's why you must become the guardian of your own thinking. You cannot control every event that enters your life. You cannot stop criticism from coming. You cannot prevent setbacks, unexpected losses, or difficult seasons, but you can decide how those experiences are interpreted. One person experiences failure and concludes, I'm finished. Another experiences the same failure and says, I've just learned one more way that doesn't work. The event is identical. The meaning is different, and the meaning you assign to an event often determines what happens next. Have you ever noticed how quickly the mind can magnify a problem? A single mistake suddenly becomes proof that you're incapable. One rejection convinces you that no one believes in you. One difficult week makes you question years of progress. That's what unchecked thinking does. It takes temporary moments and turns them into permanent conclusions. But you don't have to accept every thought that enters your mind. Just because a thought appears doesn't mean it's true. Thoughts should be examined before they're believed. Ask yourself, is this helping me become the person I want to be? Is this thought pushing me forward or pulling me backward? If the answer is no, don't give it a place to live. Instead, replace it with thoughts that produce strength. Remind yourself that you've overcome challenges before. Remember the obstacles you once believed were impossible, yet somehow found a way through. Reflect on the lessons you've learned, the discipline you've built, and the growth you've experienced. Evidence of your resilience already exists. You simply need to bring it back into focus. Another important lesson is this: don't spend your life comparing your journey with someone else's. Comparison has a way of stealing both confidence and gratitude. You'll always find someone who appears to be farther ahead, richer, more talented, or more successful. But you're not living their life, you're living yours. Your responsibility isn't to become someone else. It's to become the best version of yourself. When you stop comparing, you create space for progress. Instead of asking, why am I not where they are? Begin asking, am I growing from where I was yesterday? That's a question worth answering, because personal growth is measured against your own potential, not against another person's timeline. Your mind also needs direction. If you don't deliberately fill it with valuable ideas, the world will gladly fill it with distractions, negativity, and fear. Read books that stretch your thinking. Listen to conversations that inspire wisdom instead of gossip. Spend time with people who challenge you to become better, rather than people who constantly remind you why improvement is impossible. Your environment influences your thinking, and your thinking influences your destiny. Every day, you have the opportunity to rehearse a different story in your mind. You can replay your failures over and over, or you can rehearse your future. You can focus on what you've lost, or you can focus on what you're still capable of building. One path leads to discouragement. The other leads to possibility. Never forget this. Your greatest victories are almost always won long before anyone else can see them. They are won in the quiet moments when you choose faith over fear, responsibility over excuses, and hope over despair. That's where real transformation begins. Not in applause, not in recognition, but in the private decisions that reshape the way you think, because the life you build tomorrow will always begin with the thoughts you choose today. Once you begin changing the conversation inside your own mind, you'll notice something extraordinary. The very experiences you once wished had never happened begin to look different. The pain doesn't disappear, but its purpose starts to become clearer. You realize that life has been teaching you all along. Every disappointment, every setback, every season of uncertainty has been shaping qualities that comfort and convenience could never produce. It's easy to ask, why is this happening to me? We've all asked that question. We ask it when doors close unexpectedly, when people disappoint us, when our plans fall apart, or when life takes a direction we never imagined. But there comes a point when a more powerful question changes everything. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? Begin asking, what is this preparing me for? That single shift in perspective can transform frustration into growth. The truth is, some of the greatest lessons you'll ever learn won't come during your victories. They'll come during your struggles. Success often teaches you what worked. Difficulty teaches you who you are. It reveals your patience, your courage, your character, and your ability to keep moving when nothing around you seems to be improving. Those qualities are priceless because they stay with you long after the difficult season has passed. Think about the strongest people you've ever met. Chances are they didn't become strong because life was easy. They became strong because life demanded something from them. They faced challenges they didn't choose. They carried responsibilities they never expected. They experienced loss, disappointment, and failure. Yet instead of allowing those experiences to define them, they allowed those experiences to develop them. That's an important distinction. Life will either shape you or harden you. The choice is yours. Two people can walk through the same storm. One becomes bitter, convinced the world is against them. The other becomes wiser, more compassionate, more patient, and more grateful. The storm was the same. The response was different. One of the greatest gifts you can give yourself is the ability to find meaning in adversity. When pain has purpose, it becomes easier to endure. A difficult season no longer feels like wasted time. It becomes preparation. The setback becomes training. The delay becomes an opportunity to grow into the person capable of handling the success that's still ahead. Have you ever noticed that people listen most carefully to those who've actually lived through something? Advice carries more weight when it's backed by experience. Encouragement becomes more believable when it comes from someone who understands the struggle firsthand. That's why your greatest wounds may eventually become your greatest source of influence. The challenge you're overcoming today may become the story that gives someone else hope tomorrow. Never underestimate the value of your own journey. Someone, somewhere, is facing the very obstacle you've already survived. They don't need perfection from you. They don't need a flawless life. They simply need proof that it's possible to keep going. Your perseverance may become the permission they need to believe in themselves again. That's one of the beautiful things about life. We are not meant to succeed only for ourselves. We grow so we can lift others. We learn so we can teach. We overcome so we can encourage. Real success isn't measured only by what you've accumulated. It's measured by the lives you've influenced, the people you've encouraged, and the hope you've shared along the way. There comes a point when your focus shifts from asking, how can I get more, to asking, how can I give more? That's where fulfillment begins. Achievement may satisfy you for a moment, but contribution gives life lasting meaning. Knowing that your words, your example, or your kindness helped someone stand back up, that's a reward no amount of money can replace. Don't hide your story because it isn't perfect. The parts you're most tempted to keep hidden are often the parts that carry the greatest power. People don't connect with perfection. They connect with honesty. They connect with courage. They connect with someone who stumbled, learned, grew, and refused to quit. So don't resent every difficult chapter you've lived through. Respect it. Learn from it. Carry the wisdom forward, but leave the bitterness behind. Let every hardship increase your compassion instead of your resentment. Let every failure deepen your humility instead of your excuses. Let every challenge remind you that you're stronger than you once believed. One day you'll look back and realize that what seemed like the end of your story was actually the beginning of a better one. The pain that once made no sense will become part of the foundation on which your future is built. You'll see that every lesson, every setback, and every moment of perseverance was quietly preparing you for a life of greater purpose and greater impact, because your greatest struggle may one day become someone else's greatest source of hope. As we bring all of these ideas together, I want to leave you with one final thought that I hope stays with you long after today. Life is not asking you to be perfect. It is asking you to keep going. It is asking you to believe that no matter what has happened before this moment, you still have the power to choose what happens next. That is one of the greatest gifts you've ever been given, the ability to begin again. Too many people spend their lives looking backward. They replay old mistakes until those mistakes become larger than their dreams. They carry regret like a heavy suitcase, taking it everywhere they go. They tell themselves, if only I had started earlier, if only I had made a different decision, if only I hadn't failed. But life doesn't move in reverse, it only moves forward. The past can teach you, but it should never imprison you. There is something incredibly freeing about accepting this simple truth. You cannot change yesterday, but you can absolutely change the direction of tomorrow. Think about how many remarkable stories began with someone deciding it wasn't too late. They didn't erase their past. They didn't pretend the failures never happened. They simply refused to let those failures write the final chapter. They understood that every new day offered another opportunity to make better choices, develop better habits, and become a better person. That's the opportunity standing before you right now. No matter your age, No matter your background, no matter how many times you've stumbled, this moment is still full of possibility. Whether you're 20 or 70, whether you're just beginning or starting over, the principles remain the same. Learn, grow, improve, serve others, keep your word, stay curious, stay disciplined, continue becoming the person you were created to become. Never believe the lie that you've missed your chance. As long as you're alive, there is still work to do, lessons to learn, relationships to strengthen, dreams to pursue, and lives to impact. Your value isn't determined by how quickly you succeed. It's determined by your willingness to continue growing. You only get one life. That's what makes every ordinary day so extraordinary. Every sunrise places another 24 hours into your hands. You can invest those hours, or you can spend them carelessly. You can complain about what isn't working, or you can begin improving what is within your control. You can allow fear to make your decisions, or you can let purpose lead the way. Day after day, these choices quietly shape the person you become. Remember everything we've talked about. The storms you face are temporary. Your present circumstances do not define your future. Small daily decisions create extraordinary results. The conversation inside your mind determines the direction of your life. Your struggles can become the foundation of your purpose. None of these ideas stand alone. Together, they form a way of living that allows ordinary people to build extraordinary lives. Don't wait for confidence before taking action. Action often creates confidence. Don't wait until everything feels easy before moving forward. Growth usually happens while you're uncomfortable. Don't wait until the path is perfectly clear. Take the next step, and the next one often reveals itself. And perhaps most importantly, don't wait for someone else to believe in you before you believe in yourself. There will always be critics. There will always be doubters. There will always be people who think your dreams are too ambitious or your goals are unrealistic. Let them have their opinions. Your responsibility is not to convince everyone else. Your responsibility is to become the very best version of yourself, one decision at a time. When you leave here today, don't leave inspired for a few hours. Leave committed. Inspiration fades. Commitment stays. Make the decision that tomorrow morning you will act differently than you did yesterday. Read the book, make the call, start the business. Repair the relationship, forgive the mistake, learn the skill, take the walk, save the money, write the plan. Whatever your next step is, take it, because a better life is never built through wishing. It's built through deciding. Years from now, you'll look back on this season. The question is, what will you see? Will you see the moment you surrendered to fear, or will you see the moment you made one courageous decision that changed everything? That choice belongs to you, and it belongs to you today. Your future is not waiting for perfect conditions. It's waiting for your decision. So stand up with hope in your heart, gratitude in your spirit, discipline in your habits, and courage in your actions. Walk forward without allowing yesterday to steal another day from tomorrow. Believe that your best chapter has not been written yet. Believe that your greatest contribution may still be ahead of you. Believe that one determined decision can redirect an entire lifetime. You have just one life. Don't waste it doubting yourself, living in regret, or surrendering to temporary defeat. Live it with purpose. Live it with courage. Live it with discipline. And above all, never, ever give up. Because the moment you refuse to quit is the moment your greatest life truly begins.